The data analyst role is not the only role available on the data team. So today we're going to dive into the different roles that are available on the data team. Let's get into it. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Nello. I love to talk about tech, data, and AI. So if you're interested in any of that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. You're going to love it here. If you follow me on other channels, you know that one of the many things that I talk about is the data analyst role and how it has one of the lowest barriers for entry when it comes to analytics. But the data analyst role is not the only role that is available on the data team. So in this video, I'm going to dive into all the different roles that are available on the data team to give you a broader perspective on what the data team comprises of and how you can better position yourself if you are interested in working with data in 2025. Let's get into it. Before we proceed, I want to talk about my data analytics guide, which has all the information I'm going to be talking about in this video and more. So if you're interested in analytics, I think this is going to be a really good guide for you to get your hands on. It has everything we're going to talk about in this video and more information. Talks about interview preps, resources, the tools that are required for analytics, and many more. So if you're interested in analytics, be sure to get your hands on one of these. So let's talk about the different roles that are available on a data team. The first role is the analyst role. These guys are the guys that do reporting. Think about them like people that build dashboard, they fetch data from databases, so they use SQL to fetch data from databases, they do ad hoc reporting, they just help do any kind of light reporting. It could be in Excel, it could be in Power BI, it could be with SQL, but they don't have too much technical depth. Their responsibility is really supporting both the engineers and the business with like really light technical work. This is where I started my career. I started as an analyst. I did not stay as an analyst, but I did start there, and I usually recommend this because it has one of the lowest barriers for entry. The second role is the most technical role on the data team, the data engineers. These guys are the ones that are building the pipeline. And it really just depends on the organization. Now, I want you to think about really big corporations, things like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Meta, Google. When you think about big corporations like this, their data is like massive. They're processing many gigabytes of data at the same time. So they need like really heavy tools like PySpark, Airflow to kind of help with orchestrating and moving data from one point to another. And that's exactly what the data engineers do. They are building pipelines. They are ensuring that data gets moved at the speed that it needs to get moved. It gets moved from this database to this database, from this data warehouse to this data warehouse, from this lake to this lake, just depending on what is required to get the data where it needs to be. The next role is the analytics engineering role. This role kind of overlaps with the data engineering role, but what the analytics engineers do is data modeling. Now, what do I mean when I say data modeling? When you think about the entire data ecosystem, analytics engineers are the ones who are in the data warehouse, putting the data in the tables in a way that it's actually consumable by the analysts. Now, the analysts are not doing anything outside of just getting that data and turning it into insights. The analytics engineers are the ones that are in the data warehouse, making sure that that data actually makes sense. Now, this role can typically overlap depending on the organization. I have had the title of a data engineer, but my responsibility was really an analytics engineer. It really just depends. Sometimes you'll be an analytics engineer and you do data pipelines. Sometimes you'll be an data engineer and you do data modeling. So both roles can overlap. So that's one thing you definitely need to take note of. It really just depends on the organization. The next role is the data scientist role. These guys are the cool guys on the data team. They focus on experimentation. They're not building pipelines. They're not doing any modeling. Their role is primarily doing experiments on the data that is already in data warehouse. And they're doing things like A/B testing, experimentation, helping the business, not with light reporting, but they are like doing experiments to help the business make decisions. They could be helping marketing figure out the customers to target. They could be helping sales figure out the areas to target, not necessarily descriptive reporting, but more like experimentation and advanced analytics. That's the responsibility of the data scientist. And again, I talk about all of this in detail in my data analytics guide. The next role are the product owners. Yes, there are a lot of product owners when it comes like the data team. These guys are the people that own the data product. So I've worked in an organization where there was someone who owned the data warehouse. His job was to ensure that everything that was happening in the data warehouse was operating well. I've also seen people own business intelligence tools, so they can own like all the reporting tools in an organization. It really just depends on how the organization is choosing to operate. But owners are typically the ones that are ensuring that the product is working well, that anybody that has questions around that product can go to the owner and the owner can answer whatever questions that person have on that product. And so that's the responsibility of the data owners. Data governance. This is actually a really huge role. Who are the people that do data governance? This is not usually available in every single organization. It depends on the organization size, and it also depends on different things in the organization. Like in the finance space, data governance is so huge because in the finance space, they have a lot of regulatory things that they have to do. They have a lot of standards they have to meet. So data governance is so crucial. They must have data governance in the financial space. In tech and startup spaces, they don't really prioritize data governance because there's no regulation happening. These companies are very small, so they are really trying to just become profitable and nobody's really checking on them. But once you start looking at the bigger companies, mid-sized companies, huge companies, data governance is usually huge because now they have regulatory standards to meet, they have like compliance things to meet, and the data governance people are the ones that are consistently auditing the data, ensuring that they are not violating any privacy laws. Don't forget, they can sue you if you do violate these laws. Ensuring that the data is being compliant to all the standards, ensuring that data is, what it should be. And so that is the role of a data governance team. It's usually a team to doing data governance because data governance in its own, depending on the size of the organization, is super hectic. One person is not able to do data governance, right? So you can have a data governance analyst who just does the analyst work on the data governance team. There can be so many nuances. Again, I've worked across multiple organizations. I've seen this happen across multiple teams. The last role we're going to talk about are the architects. This role can come in different ways. It can come like solution engineer, it can come like solutions architect, it can come like data architect. It really just depends. And what do these guys do? These guys are the people that build the landscape of the data, right? They're the ones saying, they're making recommendations based off their knowledge on the cloud. Now, these guys are the people, they know the cloud so well, so they can make recommendations. They can say, hey, this data shouldn't sit here. It's better that it sits here. It's going to save us more money if it sits here. Because they have so much knowledge of the cloud, they can make really good recommendations for the engineers on how the data should be moved around on the cloud. And so the architects are so important because they save the organization a ton of money. Let me reiterate all the roles that I have talked about. We talked about the analyst role, we talked about the engineers, we talked about analytics engineers, we talked about data scientists, talked about the architect, the product owners, and the data governance part of the team. And this is only a handful of them. There's also leadership. If you guys want me to talk about leadership, make sure you leave me a comment in the comment section. I'm going to go ahead and make a video about leadership, and you can learn about all of this in my data analytics guide. I go into details talking about all of this in my data analytics guide. So if you're interested, make sure you get your hands on one of these. That's it in this video. We talked about the different roles that are available on the data team that are not necessarily just the analyst role. And I'm saying this because if you're interested in pivoting, there are so many other roles that you can explore that are not just the analyst role on the data team. There's so many, so many. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you guys are keeping on track. 2025 is the year that we actually get things done. I hope you guys are showing up and getting things done. And as always, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.